I'd now like to bring in Andy Rowley from Northeast-based reseller Frontier Group, which has a dedicated company division that focuses on the care sector. So, hi Andy, nice to see you.
Yes, you too, Nigel.
Tell us briefly about Frontier and what you do, please, Andy.
So based up in the Northeast, as you probably tell by the accent, we've been trading now for just under 11 years, servicing round about 500 B2B clients across the UK. Similar to Gareth, they can be your one-man band right up to your big corporate client with 1,000 plus users. So a real range in terms of customer size. We started off predominantly as a mobile house, so mobile voice and data. But as probably most partners, resellers have gone, you've quickly got to kind of expand your portfolio. So now we're very big in the connectivity space, hosted telephony. We really kind of got on board with mobile device management over the last 2 or 3 years, and that plays a big part in what we do. And then more recently, probably over the last 12 months, we've been trying to get a foothold in the IoT market. Everyone knows that's a big space to be in, and it is, but it's finding kind of the right strategy and the right method to kind of grasp the growth in that area. So that will become a big play for Frontier as well. We do kind of heavily focus within the health and social care sector. And that kind of is our niche. Probably now, I would say around 70% of our new business is within that vertical. So I'll probably come in onto that a bit further on and let you know how that came about. We partner with all of the major networks. So O2 via Zest, we're a Vodafone partner, and also we do a little bit of EE. We kind of really value, I guess, the Zest relationship from a wholesale point of view, because having the ability to control your customer base, definitely on the mobile front, and also connectivity and telephony, you actually controlling the billing and the management, we see that as a big, big plus. So been working with Zest for a number of years. I know I've known Rob for longer than I care to imagine type of thing. But obviously, it's good to see Zest. They are massively pushing, if you like, still mobile a big focus, but actually bringing solutions to market now that I, as a partner, can look at and embrace and see whether they fit within the Frontier portfolio.
And you touched upon it just then, Andy. I believe that you do have a big focus on the care sector, which is very relevant at the moment. Why did you decide to focus on that particular market, Andy? Yeah,
so it was kind of bit by chance. I mean, like a lot of things in life, it's just kind of right place, right time. Again, it wasn't at an awards. It was actually a networking event. I got talking to a guy who worked for a big software company who provide solutions to the health and social care sector. I'm talking about the likes of care management, medication management, and those applications would sit on a mobile phone or a tablet that the care worker would then take into the resident and then fill in. Instead of filling in a paper form, it would be done electronically. The big problem that they were having, the solution sold itself, but then the client, the end user, would say, well, where do I get the equipment and the tariff, etc. from? And they were basically saying, well, just go and speak to the mobile networks. That kind of was ending badly because the mobile network would just ship a device, a SIM card, no management, etc. And very quickly, a care worker, for example, would run up a data bill of £2,000. So what they needed the vehicle, if you like, so the mobile tablet and the airtime, but they needed it to be managed. So I got talking to this guy and I said, well, what about if when you get an opportunity, you give us a call and we can do the management, provide the service, if you like? How would that look? So it started pretty quiet, to be honest, but then I think after we did 1, 2, 3 deals for them, we became almost an enabler for that software company because we took the worry away From we bought the software, now we've actually got someone who can manage the mobile voice and data side. That partnership has kind of grown arms and legs, and predominantly is now what Frontier are involved in. So we've got a very big presence within health and social care. We probably look after 3 of the top 5 providers in the UK. Massively important at the minute. It's interesting what Rob said. If there's one plus to be taken out of the pandemic, it's been that the vertical that we're in is definitely being in demand. So we've had to be very agile, and you know what, you hear some heartbreaking stories when I'm speaking to the CEOs and the actual MDs of these businesses, and you kind of need to have that. You need to kind of engage with them in a different way to perhaps what you would do in maybe as an engineering company or a manufacturing company. So it's about really just adapting as a business and making sure that you understand that sector, because it is very different to what I would call a traditional vertical.
And Rob, Andy rather, when COVID-19 hit, did you decide, well, let's focus in on some specialized services to actually cope with the situation we were in? Is that actually happened?
Yeah, well, we knew, and like everyone else on this call would have known, that care workers were going to be heavily in demand, because even if an organisation had a big staff of care workers, obviously if they had to go into isolation or whatever that may be, they just can't say, well, we're not going to provide care to that end user. They've then got to take on an additional care worker. Yeah. So what we looked at was temporary solutions, in terms of 30-day flex up, flex down tariffs for our customers. We appreciated a lot of them might have to take on additional staff, but they mightn't be required further down the line. Zest were really good for that, in fairness, as were the other mobile networks, and they offered us the flexibility to do that. So short-term contracts were a thing. A lot of the organizations were still working out of offices, and clearly they wanted to move into the home working scenario. So telephony was a big thing. Then we had to look at, actually, that client doesn't have a good enough broadband. So then we looked at 4 and 5G solutions, again, 30-day, just to get them through that period. More recently, we flipped our entire care base for the month of November onto unlimited data. So they didn't have to worry about lockdown 2 in terms of additional data charges. So I think we did that in conjunction with speaking to the care providers, what will work for you. And I think that's what it's about, really. I think you can go out with this, well, everyone's doing 30-day contracts, let's just run with that. But we kind of engage with some of these big providers to say, what do you actually need? And then build the solutions around that.
Yeah, and one of those big providers was Age Scotland, and if we could focus on that for a minute, what were their initial key demands?
So it was an interesting one, because we were actually speaking to Age Scotland pre-pandemic about their solution in general. They were on a kind of on-premise solution. We have quite a big mobile estate with them, so they came to us and said, we want you to have a look at what you can do from a telephony point of view. And to be honest with you, I think that organization, that would have probably rumbled on for maybe 3 to 6 months to get to the point where they actually made the decision. The pandemic hit, and all of a sudden it went right up the kind of list in terms of priorities. They really needed to have a flexible solution. They knew they needed to move away from on-premise. They are massively important within Scotland in terms of being a point of contact for people, for advice, elderly people, people who are probably now really need that support even more due to the pandemic. But they needed something that we could be flexible, quick deployment, and on the back of that, also give them some real analysis and analytics, because of what they do, they've got to provide a lot of auditing information to the government, etc. And the fact of the matter is that the current solution, there's just no way that could do that. So that's where 8x8 really, once we demoed it alongside 8x8, etc., was if I could have built the product for them, it would be that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and if you were to sort of look at the on-premise solution they had before compared with the as a service solution, was it really a no-brainer in terms of the extra facilities it offered, Andy?
It was. I mean, it wasn't an absolute no-brainer. I think it was when the pandemic hit. Edge Scotland, actually, Nicola Sturgeon actually got involved directly with them because they were going to become kind of the front line, if you like, for a support, and immediately offered quite a bit of funding. They've seen an increase of around about 500% on their incoming traffic because of COVID. When they looked at the ability to report, run calls to the correct person in the correct manner and track all of that information. And also a big part of it was their IT department. They were so thinly stretched, if you like, across the business. I think the figure they gave me, 50% of their time was spent looking after the telephony, which is just madness. So I think now, looking and speaking to the IT guys within Edge Scotland, they can now focus on other areas, because actually 8x8, once you get it in, it's very easy to manage from an internal and partner perspective. So that was hugely important.
It'd be interesting to understand finally, Andy, when you had that initial conversation with Edge Scotland, did Zest4 and 8x8 help you with that, taking it forward and finally implementing it?
Well, I have to, Nigel, because it was actually our first 8x8 deal. So, so it was quite bizarre. We'd signed up, we'd done the training down in Manchester at the Zest offices. And we were really just getting ready to almost go to market with 8x8. Then one of my external guys got the call in. We need to look at this now. So it was kind of in at the deep end, because I suppose in an ideal world, I would have liked to have cut my teeth on something a little bit smaller. But this is kind of 150 plus seat organization. But you know what? I think, yes, we were learning as we went type of thing. That's why it was vital that Zest and 8x8 were babysitting us. Yeah. So although it was a challenge for us internally, it actually would have been more of a challenge if we hadn't had that backup, if you like. Now I feel like we're in a good place, because if we've got that done and dusted, the next opportunity, we've gained so much experience. But without doubt, I think without the support and the backup of Zest and 8x8, we couldn't have done it. And I'll put my hands up, I'm not going to say we could have. But I think that just builds the partnership further, if you like.
Fantastic. Thanks ever so much, Andy. Great to hear you doing so well. And we'll keep you on board, if you don't mind, just to carry on with the debate later.
Yes, thank you, Nigel.